Hey guys, it's me again, Jane Grain, and today we'll be looking at the top 5 hottest US presidents, in my opinion. Now, obviously we can't just rank them by attractiveness because no one stands a chance against Obama in that case. So instead, I'll be using this handy-dandy acronym for a fair ranking system. A stands for attractiveness. P stands for policies, domestic policies. P stands for popularity. Did people like them? They better hope so. L stands for losses. The more failures they endure during their term, the more likely they are to be lower on this list. E stands for economy. Money makes the world go round. So, of course, all anyone ever cares about is the economy, so I guess I'll take it into account. If you're like me, you probably saw that name and said, who the hell is this guy? Well, allow me to enlighten you, but first, the most important thing. I'll give him a 7.5 out of 10. He's kind of the Timothy Chalamet of presidents. Not really my cup of tea, but I see why this person put him towards the top of their list. The Kansas-Nebraska Act. Passing this act would make popular sovereignty a thing in the newly acquired states of Kansas and Nebraska, which just means white Southerners would decide whether slavery would be legal or not in these states. This would be good for this guy named Douglas, because if the people got their stuff together and figured out how to settle in Kansas and Nebraska, then the Transcontinental Railroad would go west and through his hometown, which would give him brownie points as a political candidate, I guess. So he was really pushing Pierce to sign off on this act, and Pierce did, which, surprising no one, turned out to be a terrible decision, because abolitionists and pro-slavers started duking it out in bleeding Kansas, a name given to the state due to the sheer amount of death that took place in it. This ordeal ended up occupying Pierce's attention through most of his presidency, so he didn't get much done aside from signing off on the act in the first place. So after hearing all that, you're probably thinking, wow, people must have loved this guy. His entire presidency was kinda an L if you hadn't already gathered that. Pierce himself saw it as a test run of sorts and begged for a second term to make amends, which didn't happen because he actually sucked eggs at leading a country. And also, that's not how you should approach a job. Would it shock you if I said he didn't do anything for the economy? I think it's safe to say that Pierce earned his place at the bottom of this list, and at the bottom of our hearts. So baby, when you need the job done, 2, 3. 8 out of 10. Cute, but not too cute. 2, 3. Mr. Roosevelt took a more hands-on approach to handling big business. He passed several acts that would make the playing field more equal for competing industries and to also rein in the corruption running rampant towards the end of the Gilded Age. He was also the first conservationist president we'd ever had. 2, 3. I think this person on Reddit summed it up pretty nicely. Killed monopolies, pro-military and former soldier, hunter but kind to nature, founded the National Park Service, great quotes, a badass, great mustache. What more do I have to say? You need not say anything else, anonymous Redditor. I think you covered all the bases. People loved Roosevelt because he took a personal approach to things. He was a rich guy, but with a heart of gold, if you were white. 2, 3. Theodore didn't do much in regard to civil rights, even stating that he saw other races as inferior to white people in a letter to a friend. 2, 3. Theodore worked hard to close the class gap he inherited and to even out the distribution of wealth. Overall, I'd say he was a cool guy, but his resistance towards civil rights knocks him down quite a few pegs in my eyes. Now he's thinking about me every night. Oh, is it that sweet? I guess so. I really wanted to put Ulysses at number 1, like I really wanted to, but unfortunately it just wasn't in the cards for him. You'll always be number 1 in my eyes though, Grant. Stay cold, pony boy. Anyways. 10 out of 10. I refuse to justify myself. Moving on. 'Twas the Reconstruction era, and our guy Grant had a lot to live up to after Lincoln. He signed off on the 15th Amendment, which granted the right to vote regardless of race. He also introduced the Enforcement Acts, aka sending military to the South to keep the peace, when white Southerners, specifically the KKK, tried to prevent black people from voting. People were pretty on him at the time, honestly. He was criticized heavily for his poor decisions regarding his cabinet and his shortcomings, but people respected him a lot for his general status during the Civil War. The biggest criticism of him was that he didn't do enough for the South or African American communities. He was in the middle, just doing whatever he could to keep the peace with Civil War tensions still so high. He was an alcoholic, which isn't really our business, but it wasn't very becoming of a president. And all the scandals, can't forget the scandals. Speaking of which... Black Friday, yet another Grant scandal, crashed the economy. We were still on that sweet, sweet gold standard, and these two idiots, Good and Fisk, killer evil sidekick names, were like, hey, what if we befriended Grant and convinced him to raise the price of gold so we can buy a bunch of it and then sell it for a huge profit? Initially, their plan worked until Grant was like, wait, no, and shut it down. But businesses still suffered from that brief period where gold was $164 per ounce, which is like $4,000 in today's economy. People blame Grant for the whole thing, so he's seen as responsible for the economic crash. Personally, I think that isn't fair, but I'm probably biased.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
For some reason, whenever I see JFK's name, I think of KFC, so like I'm always just picturing Colonel Sanders when he's brought up. Just me? Okay. 8 out of 10, but only because people keep telling me he's hot, and I've kind of just gaslighted myself into believing it too. A lot of JFK's policies were either foreign, which I'm not covering because, well, I don't want to, or economic, so we'll see more on that later. Obviously, JFK is one of the most liked presidents of all time. You don't need to see the approval ratings to know that people loved him, but I'll show you anyway as a treat. Ever heard of the Bay of Pigs? Yeah, me neither, but apparently that was a big failure on Kennedy's end. JFK did a lot for the working class as he inherited a major recession. He tried to lower taxes, increase the minimum wage, and open up more job and housing opportunities. He hoped all these things would result in an economic boom, and it all worked out for him in 1963, so good job, Kennedy!
They voted for Obama.
Yeah, we all saw it coming, but even after adding the whole acronym, Obama just blows it out of the water. I am really pushing it with time right now, so we're gonna do a lightning round for old Barack here. 10 out of 10, come on, just look at him. Recovery Act, stimulus package to help with the economic crisis of the 2000s. Affordable Care Act was healthcare reform. Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, yay, equal pay for women. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan's Race to the Top program. Schools got more funding.
Wow!
People criticize the Obama administration for their lackluster responses during crises such as the Christmas bomber and Gulf oil spill. He spent $700 billion to save the economy during the housing crisis. Did it work? Meh. Some people say he spent too much money and others say he didn't spend enough. He passed the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act to prevent another economic meltdown by reducing banks' abilities to make risky loans. In conclusion, I have weird taste in men. Alright, bye.